Well, the NPFL roster came out, and I wouldn't say I was shocked by any means about it. Well, we're going to go over some of the shocked fishermen. There's like one for sure. It shocked me at first, and then I had to look at it for a second. There's one or two other ones, and then none of the other ones were shocks. Some of that because I already knew, and then some just because, I don't know, it didn't shock me, and here's why. I'm very interested this year to see how everything plays out with all three tours. Been very vocal about that. I'm more interested in the MLF because I want to see, I just want to see how the anglers do and handle that rule change of the forward-facing sonar thing. All this has to do with forward-facing sonar. It really does. It's all it has to do with. The elites, I'm not really... Who knows what they're going to do this year, guys? I don't know. I don't even know what to think about some of that stuff. What I'll say about NPFL, I am interested to see how it plays out with no forward-facing sonar. I don't think it was a bad move. I think it was very smart on their part. I am going to eventually do a video. I want to take my time on a video. I think is my latest take on forward-facing sonar, and I've thought about it a lot. I think I've been very good at, it's not predicting the future, but getting a grasp on what I think the future is going to look like and where it's going to go. I think I did this about 5 years ago when I left MLF, when I could see the writing on the wall. And it's funny, I'll bring that up later on in this video because of the anglers that are fishing NPFL. So I think I have a good grasp on that. So I have a thought about where it's going. I gotta be honest, I don't mind. I'm gonna throw it out there because I think I'm gonna be right. That's gonna be another video. I want to sit down and really go over that. But the roster for me is this. I knew Andrew was gonna fish it. He had told me. I knew Hackney was gonna do it. So those two weren't shocks. And I'm kind of going on high profile people to a degree. Some of the other guys, I'll be honest, I have kept track of NPFL a little. So there's some guys on there that I know have fished that some of those guys I really don't know. Is this their first year or is this their second year? I really don't know. I think some of them on there, this is their first year, but I could be wrong. I knew Gerald Swindle had already talked about he was going to fish it. So that one didn't surprise me either. Of the other elites, Justin Atkins, that one wasn't a shock, but I wouldn't have picked him right away. But I think Justin will be fine over there. Justin's going to catch him. Justin has caught him his whole career. So I'm not worried. I'm not saying I'm worried, but Justin will be fine. You know, Zach Burge, he's going to catch him. He was already over there anyways. The John Cox, I'm pretty sure it's the same John. They had two John Coxes at one time, I think. If it's the same one, he's going to crush him. It doesn't matter what he does. It didn't surprise me of those guys going over there. I think a lot of those guys, I don't want to speak for Hackney because I want him to get on a podcast and talk, but I'll just tell you, Hackney, I think, is doing it for a lot of different reasons, but Hackney always calls me up. And Lee Livesey calls me up. They always call hey, what's going on with this team circuit? What do you think about this? They're always looking for a couple more events to fish. So I just know that they sometimes want to fish more events. Lee has called me up already this year about hey, I'm thinking about trying to get in this other couple tournaments, to do this. Hackney's always done that. So I think that's why Hackney's fishing it. I think there's some opportunities for him. I don't think it's all forward-facing sonar. He even said it. He's hey man, I can go fish forward-facing sonar the entire time at the elites, and then I can come over here and not fish it at all. I'm kind of like that too, that I could go either way. I can go, I'm going to have to. I don't get any of the ones without it. Every tournament I fish this year, maybe there's going to be one that bans it, but all the rest of them are going to have it. So it doesn't bother me one way or the other. If they had one that's banned, I think there's at least one. There might be two. I'm going to get in them just because I want to see. I just want to see. I'm just interested, man. I'm more curious about it all. I'm really curious as into who's going to get in it, who won't get in it. I like the guys that, man, I just have a lot more respect for the guys that don't care, right? They're man, sign me up. I don't care. I'll fish it without it. Doesn't bother me. Sorry. By the way, sorry. That's my apology to y'all. Sorry. That's what I think. I have more respect for you if I think you can do both. Is that a big, bold statement? And what I'm saying by that is I respect the guys that can do both. I don't know what else to say. I don't have anything in the to back that up in the sense of like I could care less one way or the other. Do I think you're a better fisherman if you can catch them both ways? Yes. Do I think you're not as good of a fisherman if you can't? I'll put it to you this way. I definitely respect the guys that have been doing it for years without it. They put it and like caught them. The guys that can do both are way up here. The guys that can only do one thing, I've never had a lot of respect for any of those guys that can only do one thing. Like a guy that can only catch them in the springtime. Whatever. Right? The guys that only can catch them fishing brush piles in the summertime because they have a couple good brush piles on a lake. Right? I'm talking about like local guys. The guys that can only catch them on one lake and once they leave that one lake can't catch them. That's great. I'll give you a little clap because you did good in the tournament on your home lake. Whatever. It's not a knock on anyone. I'm just letting you know there's some guys that I have like a ton of respect for. I'm like, that guy can catch them. Every time I look up, everywhere he goes, he catches them. This NPFL, you're gonna get a lot from these guys. Like someone's gonna do good. I think one is an easy one who's already been doing good in this, and is Patrick Walters. He's gonna catch them in both. I think Hackney's gonna catch them in both. I think John Cox should. I mean, I will say this. There's a limit to how many tournaments. I saw John Cox do it. I think Poche tried to do it too. Sometimes it's hard managing all those tournaments. And there's going to be, I don't know if this is the case. I'm not sitting there doing a bunch of research to see if it overlaps with the schedule and will guys miss a day or here or there, stuff like that. So, I mean, that does take a toll, right? That much traveling and not getting to, sometimes you just need like to step back for a week or two, being on the road. That stuff's going to take into account. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's awesome. Like if you're on a roll and that's going on, man, you don't even care. You just show up to the next event and just start smashing. If you're struggling, it can be hard. I know just because I'm friends with him, Hackney, he's one of those guys that he doesn't care about practice. He's like, man, just let me show up and just start fishing. So I don't see practice bothering him if he misses practice or doesn't. I'm not saying it won't affect him, but he's in his head, he doesn't care. It doesn't bother him one way or the other. What I'll say, and I mentioned this earlier, some of the names. A lot of these names were, and I don't know if they're fishing the invitationals. I'm not going through there and looking up, studying every guy. The invitationals, which is, I guess, used to be the tour. Some of those guys, a lot of those guys. I just start naming them off. I mean, I saw Tim Frederick on there, Jordan Osborne, Jason Reyes, Messenger. I don't want to just like forget a bunch of guys, but I saw a lot of those guys that I fished with fishing this thing. So I'm going to see how those guys do. Some of them have maybe even fished a year. I'm just saying I saw a lot of that old school FLW tour group on there. And so I'm really interested to see how they do. Did they quit fishing the invitationals because of that? I think they did. Did they see the writing on the wall? And what I mean by the writing on the wall, the guys from the BPT, some of them are still making a lot of money, are still having successful careers. Why I left, and I've said this in multiple videos, is because I saw that I don't want to call it favoritism, but I saw who they were like, this is who we're saving and trying to build around. And then, oh, y'all, we're going to say we are, but nah, whatever. And I felt like I was in the whatever. And I was fine with that. Like, it didn't bother me. I just left because I was like, yeah, I can see the writing on the wall here. Those guys eventually, I guess, left too and are now fishing the NPFL. I think, like I said, I've had certain comments about the NPFL. I'm hoping that this goes well. That's the thing. I want all these circuits to do good. Now, I say that in the sense of, if you really want, in my opinion, all of them should go away and we should just have one. If If it was me and I wanted to do this professionally, which I always did, and that's why I looked at the Elite Series when I was 12 and looked at it, and I thought that was the best way to go, and I thought it was, but it was like the only thing out there, and it was better when it was one league. Now, that league obviously didn't do everything it should have done, or guys wouldn't have left. Should have managed it better, or guys wouldn't be so willing to leave. So when you have a mass exodus like they did, that's a lot of people and a lot of star power going, man, they weren't exactly happy. And I understand why completely. Now we have 3 leagues. I think NPFL is finally like breaking that barrier of actually not becoming like the redheaded stepchild. I think they're actually in there being like, maybe they're the younger brother, but they're not the stepchild anymore, right? It's like big brother, little sister, and baby brother. I think they've gotten there. I think if they do things the right way, they can start climbing that ladder of most loved by the parents, right? I don't know. Hopefully they do the things the right way. If it was still up to me, though, and I think this would benefit, now it wouldn't benefit all the fishermen. It would benefit the best fishermen in the world. If there was one circuit with like 50 guys or even 100 and there was nothing else, and that was the pinnacle, that would be the most beneficial to those 100 anglers or 50 anglers. No doubt. No doubt. But right now we don't have that. And so if someone was like, hey, why aren't you fishing that? That's because we don't have that. If they had that, I possibly would go, that's where I'd want to be. But for right now, man, so we got a whole bunch of anglers trying to be professionals, and the money is just drained in a whole bunch of different, it's all over the place. And I just don't see the value. I don't. Like, there's value there for some. And I would have to go into it, each one of them specifically, and why it's valuable to them. I kind of mentioned that about Hackney, right? Hackney wants to fish more events. His entry fees are basically, he doesn't have any for the elites. He now can take that kind of entry fee and go fish the NPFL. And basically he's fishing, what is it? If it's like 9 and 6, that's 15 tournaments where he's fishing for $100,000. And it's going to cost him, they got now $10,000 entry fees. I forget what the NPFL is, 30, 40,000. He's putting up 40,000 at 15 chances to win $100,000. Like, so that's beneficial. I get that. Makes total sense to me. He's at a place where that's a good fit for him. He fishes one with all forward-facing sonar, one with none. Maybe after this year, he's like, I don't know. I have no idea what he's going to do. I never know what Hackney's going to do. But maybe I could see even there looking at that going, man, I made a whole bunch of money over here and not a lot over here, and I'm going to go do this next year. I don't know. But I think now that's what guys are doing, are looking at, and they should, what's most beneficial that way. Other guys, I think they're just happy where they're at, and they're just going to stay there, and they're going to mind their P's and Q's and not disrupt the waters, right? They're going to be like, okay, it's almost like being at a job where it's like, man, they might fire some people or whatever. I'm just going to just sit over here in my corner and hope no one looks at me. I think some guys are just doing that, and they're happy where they're at, or they don't care where they're at. Like some of them, like I said in that video I made the other day, they don't need the money, right? The money is irrelevant whether they win or not on some of these tours. But I saw that. Surprises. The one. I assume it's him. This is the only guy I actually went and looked at. Tyler Williams. I don't know Tyler at all. Never spoke with him. Never met him. Nothing. It showed him, when you look at the roster, it shows where they're from. It said Maine. I don't know if Tyler's from Maine. So I actually went and looked it up. Tyler's from Maine. So it's the same Tyler Williams. And like I said, it's just going off of what I've been told and what I see. Tyler Williams, I mean, it says it in his bio. He's a jig fisherman. Throws a jig. He goes around, and of course he can use live scope where he's at in the opens and the elites. So that's all I've ever seen from him is live scoping and then throwing a jig. I'm not saying he can't do other stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. The guy, like, people are known for certain things, and I like the guys who like stand behind it, right? They're proud of it. Like, I like the fact that he's like, I throw a jig, right? That's cool. That don't bother me at all. I love it. He's the one guy that's always like blown my mind about throwing a jig on live scope and then not catching fish on it. Doing good in tournaments. Like, I'll be honest with you. I live scope. Jig is not one of my baits I throw at them. I live around Rayburn and Toledo where a jig freaking catches them. And I'm just telling you, it is not a bait I throw at a fish when I see it on live scope. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm like, there's going to be people out there that like go, what is wrong with you? I don't know. I also don't flip grass very much on Rayburn and Toledo. I do, but for years I didn't. Because I couldn't win tournaments doing it. And I was like, yeah, I can catch some fish or not, but I was winning tournaments when everyone else was flipping grass. I figured out another way to catch them. I don't know what else to tell you. I've thrown a jig at a lot of fish on live scope and they don't eat it. And I'm like, tired of throwing this stupid thing, right? Without live scope, I'll go throw a jig, but I can't figure that part of it out. I don't mind telling you where I'm not good at. That's one of them. And so a lot of us, I've had this conversation with a lot of us that go, yeah, I don't know how he does it. It was only a shock because he was a younger guy that kind of made his way while live scope is prevalent, right? And so for him not to be doing it and for him to go fish NPFL, man, I'm kind of rooting for the guy. It is a jig. Like I said, I throw a jig a lot, just not when I'm using live scope. So his style fits both forward facing sonar, and we're going to see if it fits not forward facing sonar. Because like I said, without it, I get the jig bite. With it, I don't understand it. I would love to get in the boat with him because I'd be like, I want to go see how this works. That was not a surprise, just I'm interested. Jason Christie, I didn't know Jason was going to fish it. Doesn't surprise me. And y'all better watch out. Some of them NPFL guys better watch out. You start throwing Hackney and Christie, I don't even know why I think John Cox is going to catch him. Oh, I mean, I forget. Like some of those guys, I'm forgetting that. Why didn't John Cox do better is what I was thinking. I'm like, oh yeah, because guys were live scoping last year. There are some guys, I saw Shane LeHue up in there, Brandon Cobb. I'm telling you, there's going to be some guys that crush them over there at NPFL. And so it's going to be interesting. You have a lot of guys that say, hey, we want to see that kind of fishing again. I don't blame them. You know, I try not to do much of that on YouTube because like I said, when I go live scoping, I'm not throwing a jig. I'm not throwing a lot. Like my live scoping setups are so much different than my regular fishing setups. That's why I try to do everything on my channel. I have a lot more non-live scope stuff, but I just did a video the other day about live scope, just watching them, like more of an informational video and watching them, you know, these big giant mega schools, how they react. I think that's cool too. But I am excited. I'm interested to see how all this pans out. This is going to be a race, guys. They don't know it. This is a race. There's going to be a first, second, and third this year. Now that first, second, and third could mean a lot of different. It's not even going to say who's the best. This race won't determine who's the best. It's just going to determine, there's going to have a lot to see where it goes, like where the industry goes with this. Now, I have my prediction. My prediction will probably not be who wins the race and the correlation there. I have another prediction about where I think it's going with forward-facing sonar, and I think I'm 99% right. With these tournaments, I think wherever it goes this year, it might venture off somewhere, but I don't think that's the end point. I think I know where the end point will be, and I think it's more with my prediction. I think we're gonna find out. I'm gonna work on that video because I want to sit down and like make sure I go over it, because y'all say I'm all over the place. When we talk about these things, you kind of have to be all over the place. You have to gather so much stuff. Like it just can't be, well, I've got 3 main points and this is the reason why. It's never the reason why. It's 1,000 points and you got to condense them all, and you got to take all that in consideration and look at it, how it's going to be. So we'll get into that. I'm about to get my boat ready because I got to go practice for a tournament tomorrow, and then, or fish one. And right now I've got everything in my boat all laid out, dried out. It's raining. It's like 34 degrees outside. It's nasty. And so it's nice. I finally have this shop that's actually dry and warm. So go get my boat ready. Go fish some tournaments in the cold. Stay tuned for those videos. All right. See y'all.